أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله الذي لا تراه العيون ولا يصفه الواصفون ولا تخالطه الظنون ولا يخشى الدوائر، يعلم عدد قطر الأمطار وعدد ورق الأشجار وعدد ما أظلم عليه الليل وما أشرق عليه النهار، ولا تواري منه سماء سماء ولا أرض أرضا ولا جبل ما في وعريه ولا بحر ما في قعره. اللهم أنت أحق من عبد وأحق من ذكر وأنصر من ابتغي وأرأف من ملك وأجود من أعطى. أنت الملك لا شريك لك وأنت الفرد لا ند لك. كل شيء هالك إلا وجهك، لن تطاع إلا بإذنك ولن تعصى إلا بعلمك. تطاع فتشكر وتعصى فتغفر. القلوب لك مفضية والسر عندك علانية. الحلال ما أحللت والحرام ما حرمت والدين ما شرعت والأمر ما قضيت. الخلق خلقك والعبد عبدك والأمر أمرك وأنت الله الرؤوف الرحيم. وقد أحسن الشاعر إذ يقول: فليتك تحلو والحياة مريرة وليتك ترضى والأنام غضاب، وليت الذي بيني وبينك عامر وبيني وبين العالمين خراب. إذا صح منك الود فكل هين وكل الذي فوق التراب تراب. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا خير من دفنت بالقاع أعظمه، فطاب من طيبهن القاع والأكم. نفس الفداء لقبر أنت ساكنه، فيه العفاف وفيه الجود والكرم. أنت الشفيع الذي ترجى شفاعته، على الصراط ما زلت القدم. وصاحباك فلا أنساهما أبدا، مني السلام عليكما ما جرى القلم. أما بعد، قال الله عز وجل في كتاب العزيز بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يريد الله أن يخفف عنكم وخلق الإنسان ضعيفا. وقال عز وجل في مقام آخر: ومن أراد الآخرة وسعى لها سعيها وهو مؤمن فأولئك كان سعيهم مشكورا. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام: ثلاث منجيات وثلاث مهلكات. أما المنجيات فتقوى الله في السر والعلانية، وقول الحق في السخط والرضاء، والقصد في الغنى والفقر. وأما المهلكات فهوى متبع وشح مطاع وإعجاب المرء بنفسه وهي شدهن، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Brothers and elders and dear sisters, one day the Prophet ﷺ, he comes to the masjid to lead Fajr Salah. And after leading Fajr Salah, he turns around and he looks at the Sahaba. I'm holding the mic because I'm soft-spoken. If I put it here, you can't hear me. So he turns around and he looks at the Sahaba, and he doesn't say anything. He just looks at them, and they look at him. He sits like this in this position all the way to Dhuhr Salah, without saying a single word. Then he leads Dhuhr Salah. He turns around after Dhuhr Salah, looks at the Sahaba, without saying a single word. Asr Salah comes in. After Asr Salah, he sits again till Maghrib, till Isha. The entire day, he never said nothing to the Sahaba. He just sat there, and the Sahaba sat in front of him and just looked at his beautiful face. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This staying quiet and silent was not uncommon for the Prophet ﷺ, because كَانَ سُكُوتُهُ أَكْثَرُ مِنْ كَلَامِهِ. His silence was far more than his speech. Most of our life, as a scholar myself, in our final year of our alim program, we study probably 50,000 hadith. All our life we just study his words and his actions. But if you don't study what he was doing in his silence, you miss 80% of his life. If we don't know, Ya Rasulullah, what are you doing in your silence? What are you thinking about? We are literally missing out on perhaps 80% of his life, because the Prophet ﷺ, all the people who identified him, described him, they described him as such. كَانَ سُكُوتُهُ أَكْثَرُ مِنْ كَلَامِهِ كَانَ لَا يَتَكَلَّمُ إِلَّا فِي مَا يَرْجُو ثَوَابًا. He only spoke when there was an expectation of reward. Otherwise, he stayed quiet. Now imagine a day, entire day goes by, he doesn't say nothing to anyone. And he doesn't have to say anything. Hassan bin Thabit, he says, لَوْ لَمْ تَكُنْ لَهُ آيَةٌ مُبَيَّنَةٌ لَكَانَ مَنْظُرُهُ يَأْتِيكَ بِالْخَبْرِ. If the Prophet ﷺ never said a single word, and all you did was look at his beautiful face, at the moment you looked at his face, you would accept Islam. A blind man comes in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. He asked to be directed to the Prophet ﷺ. A blind man. He puts his hands, his one hand like this on the Prophet's face like this, and after putting his hand on the Prophet's face, he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah. That he accepts Islam immediately. Oh, give me this mic to make it easier for me.
They can't hear you. Upstairs, they can't hear you.
I'll use both. As soon as this man puts his hands on the face of the Prophet ﷺ, he accepts Islam, and he says, this face cannot be the face of a liar. It can't be. You know what's interesting, as I'm going to just go off topic for a second. What's interesting is sometimes in the month of Ramadan, while doing good deeds, while donating, because there's so many different places that we have to give while doing our effort throughout our life, we can sometimes lose motivation and say, what is in it for us? What's our motivation? Al-Qa'qa al-Awsi rahmatullah alayhi was walking with his friend one day, and he said to him, Dullani bi shay'in yuraghibuni ila jannah. Please tell me something that will keep me motivated. Right now I flew in from Michigan and just came straight to the masjid to give a khutbah. Sometimes, reading Quran, the daily things, reading Quran, doing dhikr, respecting my parents, being patient, sacrificing my desires. Well, tell me something that will motivate me to get to Jannah. That'll keep me going. Al-Qa'qa al-Awsi, his friend, gave him 3 words. Not the entire Quran, not the entire Surah Waqi'ah, Surah Rahman, 3 words in Arabic. And these 3 words were enough for this man to just break down in tears, and enough motivation for the rest of his life. He said to him, Fiha Rasulullah. In Jannah there's a Prophet of Allah. You've never seen him. You've never heard his voice. You've never hugged him. You've never sat with him. He's telling Qa'qa, we've never sat with him. We weren't lucky enough to be the spider that protected him for 3 days, the cloud that gave him shade, the tree that gave him rest. We weren't lucky enough to be among the Muhajirin or the Ansar. Even the dirt under his feet. We weren't lucky enough to be the stones in Mecca that saw him and said salam to him. Allah, through His infinite wisdom, created us in this time and age. But that does not defeat the point, the fact that we never saw the Prophet. And the only way to see this beautiful man is to get to Jannah. My youngest brother, Abdul passed away 3.5 years ago in a car accident. He had a friend who was not that religious. Actually, he never prayed. And he was studying in our institution. He left after a few months, but he was his very close friend. And he's from the city of Detroit, so he had this little swag. He had his own way of walking and talking. And so he comes to the grave of my brother, 22-year-old brother. And we're all standing there crying, waiting, all day sitting there, because he passed away all of a sudden, young kid. He comes to my brother's grave, and wallahi, what he said, it left a mark on my heart for the rest of my life. He looks at my brother's grave and he says, Jannah just got personal. I said, what? Jannah just got personal, meaning it's personal now. If I ever want to meet my friend again, I have to get there. Otherwise, I'll never meet my friend again. I'll never see him again. It's personal. You know, when someone is traveling from Phoenix to Michigan and they're going to, there's a student from here studying in Michigan, Zain. You know, he's doing law school in Michigan. The family over here feels more comfortable when they have family members over there. They say, you know what, we have a friend over there. We have an uncle over there. You can stay over there. For us, that's how Jannah feels. We have the Prophet there. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Many of us have our parents there, inshallah. And the only way to get there is do the same effort. Jannah is personal. That's why when the Prophet ﷺ comes out to the masjid one day and he sees a man and the Prophet did not like to see people not smiling. SubhanAllah, I find this to be the most interesting thing about the Prophet's life. One person who describes him as كان متواصل الأحزان ليست له راحة. This man was always in concern, he was always concerned about something. So you can tell he was concerned. And he did not have much comfort in this life. But Aisha, anha, when she describes the Prophet ﷺ, she says, he was كان متبسما. He was always smiling. These are two oxymorons. How can you be always in concern and smiling at the same time? If you're concerned, you can see it on your face. Nowadays you come home, your wife can tell right away something is wrong. Sometimes you're in such a good mood, you see somebody else who's concerned, your mood goes away. You get depressed seeing somebody else. But the Prophet ﷺ was a man. I remember when my brother passed away, my older brother said to me 3-4 days later, he said, you're selfish. And I said, why are you saying that to me? Don't say that to me. He said, because the Prophet ﷺ buried many loved ones every single year. Just in the 9th year of Hijri, he buried Zainab, who was bedridden all her life. After she came from Mecca, she was paralyzed. So he is attending to his daughter who was bedridden. Just think about that for a second. Think about a father who has to take care of a sick daughter. A child who has cancer. The Prophet was doing that for most of his life in Medina. And then you have to see that daughter pass away. That reminds you of your wife Khadija, Zainab. After she passes away, few months later, the Prophet is blessed with the son Ibrahim. The Prophet comes to the masjid and says, Wallahi, I'm so happy today. Allah has given me this child and I have named him after my grandfather Ibrahim. A few months later, look at this roller coaster. A few months later, his other daughter, Kulthum, passes away. And he buries her. A few months later, his son Ibrahim passes away. He held it in when Zainab passed away. He held it in when Kulthum passed away. But wallahi, brothers and sisters, when Ibrahim passed away, he just bursted out in tears. And the Sahaba could never see him cry like this. Because he was holding it in for a year. One after the other. And just a few months after that, he passed away. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But despite this, he was always smiling. He was always smiling because he wanted everyone to be in a good mood. He did not like people to be in a bad mood. What's going on? You okay? He sees a child in the masjid and not in a good mood. What's going on? You okay? Ya Umair, ma fa'al ibn ghir. His pigeon, parrot died and he's giving him comfort. So the Prophet sees a person sitting in the masjid. He says, you're right, mali araka mahzuna. You okay? Why are you so stressed for? And he says, Ya Rasulullah, kunna naghdu wa naruhu najlis ma'aka wa natakallam ma'aka wa nanzuru ilayka وَغَدًا تُرْفَعَ مَعَ النَّبِيِّينَ فَلَنَصِلُ إِلَيْكَ. The only thing that's on my mind, Ya Rasulullah, is every morning we come and see you, every evening we come and see you, we get to hear your beautiful face, we get to benefit from your gathering, but a day will come in Akhirah that you're going to be uplifted with all the prophets and we're not going to get to see you. Yes, Jannah is amazing, but what is Jannah if we can't see you? I'd rather be here with you in Medina. The Prophet did not have an answer. Jibreel Islam comes down with the verses, وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Those who obey the Prophet, those who obey Allah and His Prophet will be with the Prophet in Jannah. Brothers and sisters, Asya alayhi salatu wasalam, as she was being dragged out of the same palace, she, with her full heart, built, designed, decorated. We know how much it's for sisters. My wife, she brings in she'll bring in a flower, then she'll bring in a rug. We made in our house the goalpost her flowers when we play soccer. And when we shoot the ball and it hits the flowers, she goes crazy. Oh my God, it's my flowers. Like, it's just a flower. It's a plant, not even a flower, a plant, just green. But to her, it's a big deal because she's decorating her house. She likes these plants, but we still use it as goalposts. And so, Asya, as she's being dragged out of that palace that she loved so much, Fir'aun pulls her out in front of all these people. For 1 second, brothers and sisters, our brothers and sisters in Gaza, the videos and the pictures we see of them, don't for 1 second think that they're being humiliated or embarrassed. They're being honored. That's an honor to die for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to protect Quds for the sake of Allah. And they know that. They know that. When a shaheed leaves this world, Wallahi al-Azim, this is a hadith. The Prophet saw Jabir anhu sitting down concerned. He said, Jabir, why do I see you so concerned? Remember I just said about the concern part? Asking people around us, what's going on, everything okay? Jabir is concerned because he lost his father in the battle of Uhud. Not just lost his father, but his father's body was mutilated. And he was very much concerned about that. To have a proper janazah, where the body is perfectly, like my brother's body, we saw his body. I've been in part of janazahs and accidents where the mother and father can't open the casket. It's very difficult. It's so hard upon the person. Is Allah angry at me? No, Allah is honoring you. That you're giving your life for the sake of Allah. So when Jabir was stressed, the Prophet said, should I tell you something? Jabir, this is for every single shaheed till the Day of Judgment. He said, yes. He said, Allah, when your dad's soul was taken, your dad's soul spoke to Allah. Hadith is sahih. He spoke to Allah directly. Allah asked your father Abdullah, oh Abdullah, is there anything you need? He said, Ya Allah, send me back to this world so I can become shaheed again. ثم أحيا فأقتل ثم أحيا فأقتل ثم أحيا فأقتل. I want to go back. This was so enjoyable, dying for your sake. And then Allah said, well, that's not going to happen. Then he said, Ya Allah, tell the people behind us that we're good. Then Allah revealed the verses, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ الْأَمْوَاتِ بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ. Don't think those who give their life for the sake of Allah are dead. Rather, they are alive with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ. They're happy. Versus a person who dies not on the right path. May Allah make us die on the right path. With iman, with a'mal. A person who dies like this, his soul also talks to Allah on the Day of Judgment. What does he ask for? He asks for the same thing. Oh Allah, send me back. But his request is for a different purpose. He's saying, oh Allah, send me back. لَعَلِّي أَرْجِعُ أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ كَلَّا. So I can go back and I can do good deeds. Allah says, Kalla. That's never going to happen. So these brothers and sisters are being... I remember when my brother passed away, a Palestinian came to my dad to give him the news that your son is shaheed. He says, La adri am nuhannik am nu'azzik. I'm not sure, doc. My father's a physician. He said, I'm not sure, doc. Should I congratulate you or should I give you condolences? You're the father of a shaheed. Wallahi al-Azim, these are the sentiments between those brothers and sisters because they know they're the father of shuhada, the mothers of shuhada, the sisters of shuhada. They're honored by this. It's an honor for them to be among those people. As I think about it, Umar ibn Khattab anhu, in Madinah al-Munawwara, the greatest honor was to sit next to people who had wounds from battlefields. It was the greatest honor. Think about that. If someone from Gaza comes to this masjid and their hand is amputated, and their leg is amputated, or their eye was injured in Gaza, how would you feel looking at them? You would want to sit next to them. This person is an honorable person. One time Umar al-Khattab comes inside to eat food. There's a man sitting there by the name of Amr bin Tufail bin Amir al-Dawsi. In the battle of Yamama, him and his father were in the first row, and the father became shaheed. But this child, his arm was cut, he had an open wound. Shortly after the battle of Yamama, he was sitting eating food. Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu comes inside the room to eat food. This young man sees that it's possible that Umar will become disgusted by this blood open wound, so he moves out of the way and sits in the corner. Umar bin Khattab, being the great man he was, he looks at him, he says, لِمَاذَا تَنَحَيْتَ عَنِّي? Why are you moving away for? كُلْ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَصْعَةِ, eat from this plate. And then he says something so profound. He says, وَاللَّهِ لَا أَكُلُ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَصْعَةِ حَتَّى تَأْكُلُ مِنْهَا لِأَنَّ مَا فِي الْقَوْمِ رَجُلٌ بَعْضُهُ فِي الْجَنَّةِ غَيْرَكَ. He says, listen, Amr, Wallahi, I'm not going to eat unless you and me eat from the same plate, because there's nobody sitting in this gathering whose one part of their body is already in Jannah other than you. It's my honor to sit next to you. My honor to sit next to you. Because your hand was given in the path of Allah. Talha bin Ubaidillah, when he saw the Prophet ﷺ in the battle of Uhud, coming to a top portion, higher elevation, and he was in perfect angle for the kuffar to attack. Talha bin Ubaidillah from the enemy line jumped and stood in front of the Prophet ﷺ. He saw an arrow coming to the Prophet. He put his hand in front of the Prophet's face like this. His entire arm was pelted with arrows. For the rest of his life, his right arm was paralyzed. He couldn't move his right arm. Ashra mubashara. And then he grabbed the Prophet, and his entire back had 28 wounds. No Sahabi ever had wounds on their back. They always had it on their front because they were brave. They gave their life for Allah. Except for Talha bin Ubaidillah, he had, because he was protecting the Prophet, moving him away. The Prophet ﷺ used to say, if you want to see a shaheed walking on the face of the earth, look at this man. Gave his back and his hand for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When Ali bin Abi Talib was becoming Khalifa, Talha bin Ubaidillah was the first person to put his hand in his hands to pledge allegiance. But he couldn't move his right hand. And there were not people, those Sahaba were not people who wore their flags on their uniform. Their good deeds only Allah knew. So not everyone knew what they did. So there are young people like this masjid. There must have been elders who helped construct, fund this place. But they're not going around telling the young people that come around that are energetic, excited. They're not telling them, this is what I did, this is what I did. But the young people have the responsibility to, of course, move the effort forward, but also appreciate the efforts of the people in the past. And recognize them, and appreciate them. Because that's how dunya works. The moment you don't do that, the effort stops. And unfortunately, I'm young myself, this happens a lot. There are people who came, my father and my mother are physicians, they came to this country in the 80s, they made a lot of effort, maybe not perfect, but their effort is what planted the seeds. The young generation comes and say, well, this was all wrong, this is how it should be. So Talha bin Ubaidillah was an elder at that time. He puts his left hand in the hands of Ali bin Abi Talib. The young people sitting there, they get very angry. They say, why, oh old man, why are you putting your left hand? Put your right hand, not knowing his right hand was already paralyzed. Ali bin Abi Talib gets up and he hugs them and he says, oh fools, this man's right hand is more precious in the eyes of Allah than Ali and everything he did. Because his hand was shaheed in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Asya alayhi salam was being dragged out of the palace. Embarrassed, humiliated. Then her body was placed on a plank of wood on top of a mountain. A woman, after being placed on a plank of wood, her body was pegged onto this plank of wood. Her arms, her legs were pegged. وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ, Allah says, Fir'aun, the one that used to use watad. Watad means pegs to punish people. He was the first one to do this. She's being pegged like this. Brothers and sisters, in the pinnacle of humiliation and embarrassment of this dunya, Allah gave her honor. Because she did it for the sake of Allah. What does she ask for? Coming back to what I said about motivation for Jannah. She says, رَبِّ ابْنِ لِي عِنْدَكَ بَيْتًا فِي الْجَنَّةِ. Oh Allah, I don't care about nothing in this world. I just want a house in Jannah. When I open the curtains, I can see you. That's all I want. I don't want nothing else. Al-jar qabla al-dar. You look at your neighborhood before the house. You can buy a massive house in Detroit, no one's going to buy it. You look at the neighborhood first. Al-rafiq qabla al-tariq. You can go to a beautiful restaurant, but if you go to this restaurant at a time where you and your spouse got into a fight, the food doesn't taste good. It only tastes as good as the person sitting across the table. You go to Makkah Mukarramah, we get cards in the lobby for our rooms. Then you go to your room, the first thing you do is you move the curtains. Some people, they get the view of the city, which is a beautiful view. Some people get the view of the hotel behind them. Some people get the entire Kaaba view. What is the reaction on that person's face who gets the full Kaaba view? Just imagine that for 1 second. That is the reaction Asiyah alayhi salatu wasalam had when she was pegged to this plank of wood, because at that very moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed her the view from her house in Jannah, which was next to Allah. And she started smiling. And Fir'aun said, "Unzur ila hadhihi al-majnuna, nu'adhibha wa hiya tadhak." Look at this crazy woman. We are punishing her, but she's smiling because she's seeing the place in Jannah. Brothers and sisters, I started the khutbah with this point. What is our motivation? Our motivation must be, when the Prophet saw this man grieving, when the Prophet saw Rabi'a bin Ka'ab serving him so much, the Prophet said, "Rabi'a, is there anything you want? Salni. Tell me, is there something I can do for you?" Anytime the Prophet, someone used to serve him a lot, they used to earn his dua. He says, "Ya Rasulullah, as'aluka murafaqataka fil Jannah." I just want to be with you in Jannah. That's our motivation. Tu ghani azhar du'a man faqir. Roz mahshar uzr hay man pazir. Gar to me bini hisab na guzir. Az nagahi Mustafa pinha pagir. Allama Iqbal, he says, "Oh Allah, you're ghani, I'm faqir. You're independent, I'm dependent. On the day of judgment, when the time comes to do my hisab, please let me slide through. Don't stop me. Because if you stop me, I'm going to be punished. Don't stop me." But he asked for two things. He said, number one, if you're going to do my hisab and you're going to take my accountability, don't take it anywhere near the Prophet ﷺ, because I don't want to be a cause of embarrassment for him. You know, when a child gets a bad report card, they don't show it to their father. "Oh Allah, please, I don't want to cause the Prophet any more agony, any more pain, any more stress. Please don't do it in front of the Prophet ﷺ, that he gets this, he gets saddened by the state of his ummati. But oh Allah, I have one more request. From a distance, just show me the beautiful face of the Prophet ﷺ. So at least I can say I saw it once in my life." The Prophet ﷺ was sitting there, quiet all day. Why was he quiet all day? Inshallah, today for Taraweeh, I'll be here. I'll give the khatara, I'll tell you why he was quiet all day. But the Sahaba are sitting in front of him all day just looking at him. Why? Because that was the most precious thing to him in the world. We've never seen him though. We've never seen him. Allah make us among those who make the effort that Jannah is personal for us. Jannah is personal for us. The moment the Prophet left this world, when the Sahaba, 46 years after the Prophet passed away, Aisha radiallahu anha passed away. Tell me something. Do you think there was real sadness or joy? ما رأيتك اليوم فرحا أقرب من حزن. Aisha said herself, those moments when Sahaba were leaving this world is the mixture of happiness and sadness. Like, you cannot say they're sad, but you cannot say they're also, it's just a mixture. Finally, I get to see the Prophet again. When Bilal was on his deathbed, they said, "Oh, wa huzna. Oh Bilal, what a sad day." He said, "Wa farha. What a beautiful day. غَدًا نَلْقَى الْأَحِبَّةَ مُحَمَّدًا وَحِزْبًا." I'm going to meet the Prophet tomorrow. Hussein, radiallahu anhu, on the battlefield in Karbala, he says, a poet says, "मैं सर पे सजदा हूँ ए शिमर, मुझको कत्ल भी कर, रिहाई दे भी अब इस अहद करबला से मुझे." He says, a beautiful poem. I love this line about this. He says, "मैं सर पे सजदा हूँ ए शिमर," after his entire family passed away. And he was alone, and there was Shimar standing right in front of him, but no one wanted to kill him. He fell in sajda, and he said, "Oh Shimar, go ahead, shoot me. मुझको कत्ल भी कर, रिहाई दे भी अब इस अहद करबला से मुझे." let me move away from this place. Let me escape from this prison. Let me get freed from this prison so I can go and meet my grandfather again. I can go and meet my family again. I'm only here because Allah wants me to be here. What are you waiting for? Go ahead. Our motivation, brothers and sisters, in Ramadan has to be every fast that we have, every iftar, every suhoor, every effort that we make. Inshallah, the reward of this is the fact that we will drink from the hands of the Prophet on Hawdaqah. The fact that the Prophet will do shafa'ah for us. The fact that we will wait for the Prophet in front of the gates of Jannah, and he will knock on the gates of Jannah and it will be open for us. The fact that we will see him in Jannah and we never see him in this world, this should be our ultimate motivation, and there is no greater motivation than that. May Allah make us among those who truly do the effort of the Prophet so we can be with the Prophet in Jannah. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi safa ma ba'd. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna 'alan nabi. يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما اللهم صل على محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما اللهم صل على محمد الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما. Before we start our dua, we have people who are sick in the community. Allah give them shifa kamila ajila mustamirra. Our brothers and sisters in Gaza who are suffering, Allah, you give them shelter. Allah, you give them food. Allah, you give them clothing. Allah, you accept them as shuhada. There's a young sister, the brother just told me, 11 years old, who's sick, her parent very sick. Allah, give her shifa kamila ajila mustamirra. Allah, everyone who's sick, anyone who's going through issues or problems, oh Allah, you're qadir and mutlaq, you can do anything. You can say the word kun and it becomes. Allah, make it easy for the Muslim ummah all over the world. Give us the strength of iman to continue to do good deeds. I will be here inshallah tonight for Taraweeh. Many people are going to come ask me afterwards where you're from, so I'll just tell you right now. I'm from Michigan. We have, I'm sure some of you seen Miftah Institute. We had a program here in ACA a few months ago, in an event. This is an institution. I encourage the community to take advantage of the offerings of our institution. It's online. You can go on YouTube. You can go on Facebook. We have two different institutions. One institution we have is called Michigan Islamic Institute, where we have students that from all over North America. It's a boarding school. They come, they live there. We take students from the age of 12, and they live there. They finish middle school there. They finish high school there. They become hafiz there. They become alim there. And the goal of this institution is to produce people who become alim and also become professionals. Like my younger brother became hafiz alim from this institution, finished, went to pre-med, went to med school. Right now he's in his third year of orthopedic surgery residency. He's a hafiz, he's an alim, and he's also now becoming an orthopedic surgeon. The point of the objective of these institutions is to have they have the structure where if someone wants to do both things, they can easily do it. If someone wants to just become an imam, they can also do that. So I'll be outside, outside you can ask me, if you have children, nephews, nieces, make sure that they are participating in the effort of ilm throughout their lives. Otherwise, ilm gives life just like water gives life. We also have Miftah. Miftah is not a boarding school. Miftah is for adults, for youngsters all over the country. There's online programs every single night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Myself and my older brother, we do a Moments to the Quran tafsir for half an hour. You can tune in on YouTube. More than 2,000 people come live every single day. These are the things that we can do throughout the month of Ramadan. After Ramadan, we have programming online. We have different intensives. So I just wanted to share this with the entire community. Inshallah, I'll be at the door if you have any questions, and I'll be here tonight as well. اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر من نصر محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم ومعهم اللهم اخذل من خذل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم ولا معهم اللهم اشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا انك حق على كل شيء قدير اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر من نصر محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم ومعهم اللهم اخذل من خذل محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم ولا معهم اللهم اشف مرضانا وعاف مبتلانا وارحم موتانا انك حق على كل شيء قدير امين امين رب العالمين ان الله بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى وأتم وأكبر أقيموا الصلاة. Please make your line straight.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله. استوى اعتدلوا تراصوا بين المعروف والمنكر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وأصحاب اليمين ما أصحاب اليمين في سدر مخضود وطلح منضود وظل ممدود وماء مسكوب وفاكهة كثيرة لا مقطوعة ولا ممنوعة وفرش مرفوعة إنا أنشأناهن إنشاء فجعلناهن أبكارا عربا أترابا لأصحاب اليمين ثلة من الأولين وثلة من الآخرين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. وجاء ربك والملك صفا صفا وجيء يومئذ بجهنم يومئذ يتذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد. يا أيتها النفس المطمئنة ارجعي إلى ربك راضية مرضية فادخلي في عبادي وادخلي جنتي. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum. Can I have your attention, inshallah, for just 5 minutes, real quick, inshallah. And last week, we did our annual fundraising. Alhamdulillah, we collected to approximately 260,000. We're still short 140,000 for our annual fund for the year. So we would love, it's Ramadan, it's Friday, it's one of the best days to do your sadaqah. So we really would love to see some hands for, maybe 5,000 each, so we can collect some of this money so we can do our operations and have the regular operations for the masjid. So who would like to start with a $5,000 donation to the masjid to keep the operations going? There's forms also, the brothers have some forms, and they can give you the form. There's also the kiosk. Jazakallah khair, brother. So we can do it 1,000, maybe 1,000 each, so you can pick up the forms. Can I see some hands for 1,000, inshallah? Jazakallah khair. Jazakallah khair, brother. Can we see some more hands, please? This is for the house of Allah. It's for operations. I'm not a fundraising specialist, and I don't think we need one to collect the money to keep the operations going. So please donate to the masjid. It's your masjid. We don't have any other income except from the people and the musallis that come to the masjid. So please donate generously to the masjid. Jazakumullah khair. Please, the forms will be out there. So and the kiosk, and you can do it online as well. Thank you.